Gunshin Financial LLC is a proud member of Purse Strings, an independent, fee-based registered investment advisory firm. Gunshin Financial serves individuals and businesses as a fiduciary, with an emphasis on relationships, not transactions. Kelly Gunshin, certified financial planner, specializes in retirement, financial and investment planning for women, as well as ESG investments. Listening carefully and respecting my clients' interests are central to my approach, says Kelly. You can find Kelly at pursestrings.co. That's pursestrings.co.
Thank you, fearless listeners, and go you for hitting play. Please like and subscribe as it helps us grow. Also, share with your friends as we have to keep talking about this shit. Now let's dive in.
Coming up on today's edition of Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about, our guest is Liz Faircloth of the Real Estate InvestHER.
And if you haven't heard of the Real Estate InvestHER, then listen closely because you will be amazed.
Liz Faircloth is one of the two founders of the Real Estate InvestHER Organization. They hold a combined 27 years of experience, a portfolio of over $130 million, and they're in 42 countries via their podcast, and host 56 meetup locations.
We were introduced to Liz and Andresa and even attended their mind-blowing conference last year. It was so impressive to see the hundreds of females of real estate investors coming together to learn, network, and grow their real estate investments.
It was so inspiring, and we wanted to bring the message and information about the real estate investor so that all women can see what's possible when they invest in real estate.
So, let's get started.
Gloria Steinem once said, "We will never solve the feminization of power until we solve the masculinity of wealth." Barbara Provost and Maggie Nielsen are the team at Purse Strings that will help you navigate the ins and outs of financial independence so that you can be financially fearless. This is Women in Money, the shit we don't talk about.
So Liz, you were quoted in the New York Times as saying your organization helps women balance their life and create financial freedom on their own terms, which we love. So please jump in and introduce yourself.
Sure. It's so nice to be here with both of you and excited to collaborate further with Purse Strings. So I want me to go back to my beginnings of real estate or my childhood, or how far back do you want me to go?
Whatever you want to share. Yeah, okay. Let's hear it all.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I grew up in New Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl. I talk very fast, so I apologize for everyone listening. I will talk fast. But I grew up in a middle-class family, was the youngest of three girls. And I was, I went to college, I was a psych major. I got this bug that I wanted to be a social worker, wanted to be a therapist, wanted to open my own practice. And while I was at graduate school, my brother-in-law handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a very popular book, been around forever, Robert Kiyosaki. And that kind of forever changed my trajectory. Reading that, I was like, wow, passive income, financial abundance, and freedom. And my dad was a school teacher. My mom worked in insurance. So, starting businesses, having real estate on the side as passive investments wasn't something I grew up with. It wasn't something I was even familiar with. So that book kind of opened my eyes. My brother-in-law was the first entrepreneur I met. And so I then changed my focus actually getting a sales position, because one of the things it talks about in that book is to go and get a sales position. And anyway, long story short, I ended up working for many years in consulting, and at the same time met my now husband, and we started investing in property together. 2004, we bought our first duplex, and now we own properties in 4 states, a couple thousand units, and with a lot of partners and passive investors. But it wasn't a straight line. It was a lot of bumps in the road. It's almost 20 years since our first investment. And then a number of years ago, my friend and partner came together to focus on empowering women in this space. Because it's funny, one of the things that I'll just circle back to quickly is my graduate school experience. So while I was in graduate school, and while I was like reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, taking social work classes, I was all over the place a little bit because I was like, wow, I want to do more of this entrepreneur stuff. But I also have this like strong passion to serve people through social work. And I also had this passion for women. One of my field placements was a women's community. So it's kind of like small circles of women coming together that had a mental illness and a substance abuse. And I really liked that a lot. That was probably my favorite field experience. And one of the things I did in graduate school is I took a entrepreneur class. Again, after reading the book, I was at one of the best schools in the country, University of Pennsylvania. I was at the School of Social Work, but I was very close to the Wharton School. So I'm like, I'm taking a business class. I'm taking one on entrepreneurship. Long story short, one of our tasks was to create a business, and I created a nonprofit focused on women, serving women. And that was 20 years ago. And then that literally just went on the shelf, didn't do much with it. And while I was working corporate and in real estate, all my interests and pulls always came back to serving women and helping them. For whatever reason, I think is seeing and working with a lot of women in my field placement 20 years ago, especially with what they were going through with mental illness and substance abuse. And these were tough stories that you were hearing. So anyway, that I think born my passion for serving women, and then to combine it with real estate was kind of where we are today, and really helping women get where they need to go in a way that we create support and community.
Wow, that's impressive. And I love how you kind of followed your heart and put your passions together with women and real estate. That's so cool. So it seems like you did kind of explain where the passion of helping women comes from, but tell us about how you started in real estate. Like you said, you and your husband bought something. Was this all based on the book that you read and why you wanted to start, or was your husband fully on board? How did that all take place?
Yeah, he was working at the time as an engineer. He went to school for engineering. I said to him, hey, I just read this book. It's pretty, and we just literally started dating. But, when you meet people, we were an hour and a half away from each other. And we get together and talk about our goals, our aspirations, our vision for life. Like, we're in our 20s, and that's what we did on the weekends. And so I had him read it, and he had the same bug of like, wow, wouldn't it be great to create a legacy, and that's, and create financial stability and abundance through real estate. We didn't know much about it. We love the idea of fixing something, and it's a physical asset, right? So we started taking courses at the local RIA community, and that group is still there. What you basically do is we just educate ourselves for a year, and took courses and took classes, and everyone that came and spoke about any tactic and strategy we took, and this is 2004, right? So this is like, quite some time ago. And one of the things that they told us about was calling for rent ads. So we're like, why would you call for rent ads? They said, well, if you're calling a landlord or a tired landlord, and they have an opening in their duplex or single family, they might be really frustrated because, think about it. If you have a vacancy, that means you're not making any money. And that's how obviously landlords make money, is by rent. So we said, okay, we'll do that. And then we went door knocking. I mean, we did everything they told us to do. And this gentleman answered the phone once and said, hey, I might be interested in selling. And so we met him, and that was the duplex we ended up buying. And we did not have the money. It's $130,000, is a row home right outside of Philadelphia. So it's one of those row homes that, is kind of, you don't really know what season it is if you're not looking out the window, because it's just, kind of like tunnel vision. But anyway, we bought it, and my father lent us the money. So we needed about $30K to buy it and also renovate it. And he lent us the money, and that was a big deal. My dad did. It wasn't like they just had swarms of money.
Deal. Yeah.
Like, they weren't just like, oh, $30K, who cares? Like, that was like a lot of money to anyone, and especially my parents. So them lending it to us was a big deal, and us getting our start that way. And we were very grateful. So, but yeah, that's what we did. We took classes and courses for a year and really educated ourselves.
So did you live there and rent it?
No, that would have been a great idea, but we didn't do that. We just rented both units. At the time, my husband was living outside of Philadelphia as well, so it was very close. And then when we got married in 2005, we decided to live in New Jersey, and so we really wanted to. Then we ended up doing a 1031 exchange, it's called, into another property in New Jersey. That's when you pretty much can sell a property, and by a certain date, you're buying another property, and you're able to do that where you're not paying taxes right away, which we all know of. The beauty of buying real estate and selling it, you're hit with capital gains. So, but yes, that we didn't do that strategy, but that's a great way to get involved in really getting going with real estate, is to live in one unit, rent out the other. That's it's called house hacking, the technical term. But yeah, it's a great strategy as well.
And so from just buying this, two flat or two apartments, and now you said you have thousands of units, which is so impressive to me, but so nonchalant. And even at this conference, all these women would just nonchalantly buy a 20 unit or something like that. It was amazing to me. And so clearly you really believe that women should be investing in real estate. Why is this?
It's a great question. I mean, here's the deal. I think as I've gotten into this space, I've always seen women to be such like powerful people, and men are powerful in both. It's not like I like women better than men or anything. I just, women have so much in them. And I've always been so impressed by the women in my life and the women that I've gotten a chance to know. Yet it's interesting because statistically, women do invest less than men. When we think of Wall Street, we think of white men with gray hair. We don't think of women. We don't think of a lot of other types of people on Wall Street or investing, right? The traditional way we think of investing. Yet women outlive men statistically 6 to 7 years. So the chances of, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, right, you outliving your spouse is high, and the need for financial stability and abundance is there. Real estate in terms of investing, right? It's not just the old age of spending all your money, like the golden goose. You're not killing the golden goose. The golden goose is producing eggs. And I always think, real estate or any other investment strategy is producing eggs. So you still have that goose, but you kind of have that egg that it's producing. Why I like real estate so much is that you can have control over it. I can't be in control of the fact that a bunch of tech companies are laying off their people right now. Google, make the long list. These are very phenomenal companies that you would. So I don't have any control over what happens on Wall Street. I do have control over what happens in my community and the investments that I'm involved in. Real estate is one of the most stable investments over time. It's incredibly stable. If you buy a rental, I mean, we've bought rentals in very, very tough areas, in different class neighborhoods where there's more crime, less crime. We've done it all. We got our start in Trenton, New Jersey, and it's the capital of New Jersey, but it's still figuring itself out in terms of economy and everything. So we've invested everywhere, and it's hard to lose in real estate, even with our properties in Trenton. There's been some that, you'd question, but if you're buying right and you're buying in the right market, it's hard to lose in real estate. That's my 2 cents. Doesn't mean you can't. Now, if you're flipping a house and you're doing more speculative deals, your risk is going to be going up. But like a tried and true rental in a strong market with more demand than supply, it's hard to lose a long term and from a stability perspective. So I love real estate. And then you get depreciation, you get all the tax write-offs, and it's just, I could keep going on and on. It's one of those assets that technically goes up, but it looks like it's going down on your tax. So it's got so many benefits from an investing perspective. So I do love real estate.
I can tell. So did you ever flip them, or are you just keeping your real estate for the long term? What's your strategy typically?
Both, and there's a lot of different ways, that there's so many, I think there's so many strategies, right? Some people are like, should I buy a vacation rental, do an Airbnb, should I get into this or that? Fixing and flipping houses, we did a handful of those over the years. And, like anything, you have to manage timeline and project. And, it's not like what you see on HGTV, especially if you get into older homes. What you think the budget is today can be different tomorrow. So it varies. So I'm a big fan of knowing your strategy and knowing it well, but yeah, we haven't flipped a property in a while. Now we are into larger multifamily. What I mean by that is we buy, properties that have a couple hundred units, and we do that with investors, right? So these are significant purchases. Our last purchase was $60 million, right? So it's not like we have 60 million in my husband and I's pocket. We're just literally buying these 600 units by ourselves. We're doing this with a lot of people, which is kind of a neat way to do it, right? Where you own part of it, and then the investors own a big part of it. That tends to be something where you're holding for a certain time frame, right? Maybe 10 years. And so there's different strategies. People have small multis, like 2 units, 4 units, that they own their whole life. It pays itself off and they don't want to sell. It's all different kind of strategies of why people hold on long term, sell, and then redeploy that money in other areas. But yeah, there's a lot of different niches that you can get into. You just have to know what niche you're getting into, and is it going to align with your financial goals, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. Mm-hmm.
So it seems like real estate, something that you pulled out is that you have a lot of control. It's not like controlled by the stock market and things like that. But it seems like it could free up some time, especially for women. As we know, women are very powerful, but we also have a lot to manage between taking care of the younger, taking care of the older.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, we became teachers and nurses and, everything going on. But with real estate, it's able to kind of make an income or make some money without, working a 9 to 5 all the time, or, have that extra side hustle as an investment.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go into this and like the possibilities it opened up for, some people in your community?
Yeah, I love that question, because I think so much of it is, in our space is like, how many doors does somebody own? And the more is better, and more isn't better necessarily. You could have women who have, a few properties and they own them free and clear. And because the way they manage them and the way they have them financed or what have you, they're able to live the way they need to live, or they're doing it on the side. They're supplementing right there, or they're doing a couple of different things. So there's so many different ways to approach it. We have a lot of women who want a certain lifestyle. They want flexibility. They want to pick up their kids from the bus at 3:00 and get them on the bus at 8 a.m. and not have to go into the office, so to speak. So and COVID only increased that, right? The pandemic only increased that need and want of flexibility. There's so many women, there's a lot of women we interview and we have the chance to meet that have a number of, short-term rentals. And those are very lucrative, right? So again, going short-term against a traditional rental. Now there's more self-management, right? It's a little more like concierge. You're serving your guest, if you will, and you have to really, you're not just like, here are the towels, good luck for the next 3 months, right? This is a little more hands-on. But because of the apps and all these different resources, what's the beautiful part is you can automate a lot of this stuff. So I know a handful of women in our community who run our meetups or just we know very well who, do very well with short-term rentals because they've built a system. They have the, tech to help support them. And they do it kind of in increments where they have one and then they start to get rinse and repeat. I think that's the biggest thing is if you want to replace your income and not just do this on the side or for retirement purposes, because there's all different types of women in our community, but some women are just done. They don't want to work for anyone else. They want to work for themselves. They really want to replace their income. There's a way to do it. You just have to be it takes kind of like a plan and it takes a very strategic plan. And it also takes knowing what you need to gain. Because one rental is not going to make you financially free, right? It's the path to financial freedom, but it's not in and of itself. So kind of knowing where you want to go, knowing what niche will get you there. I'm not an interior designer. I don't like buying property and saying, oh, that's not my thing. I'm not very good at that. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm bad at, but yeah, depending on the woman, they get into different types of niches and they do it full time, and they're able to leave their corporate work or their W-2.
Maggie's so inspired. I can just tell by looking at her. She's thinking,
Yeah, I've been thinking about a property like the past couple months, and I was like, wow, this could be really good. Buying a 3-flat, living in one portion.
Yeah.
And just, if anything, having free rent, having that property go up.
And financing is powerful when you do that, when you actually so there's a strategy of just a live and flip or a house hack in a sense, where you're living in the asset, fixing it up, and then you're leaving. And if it's 2 years, depending on the state, but if you're there for 2 years, you can sell that property or what have you tax free. So there's a lot of advantages to actually doing that. I knew a woman, she runs the Money podcast for Bigger Pockets. Her name's Mindy Jensen. She's great. She's lived in all her flips. So she lives there. And again, doesn't have to pay the tax on, all different types of, and her and her kids, that she does this with her kids and her husband. And I'm like, God bless you. I don't know if I could ever do that, but again, to each his own, right? It's all kind of, but being able to live in a property, get your mortgage paid off by a tenant. I mean, that's just, to me, a no-brainer. It's not a hard thing to convince. And even if, depending on where you are in your life, you're hearing a lot of people. I invited a woman, she was in her 60s and she's house hacking, because what house hacking is fascinating for, again, we think 20-year-olds, right? But it's all relevant. This woman, she's an empty nester, divorced empty nester. And she really loves the fact that she has people coming to her property and it's like almost like a neighbor. It's like almost like someone that it's fascinating, right? Where you are in your life and how real estate could be a connector to other things than just money. It's lifestyle. I thought that was fascinating because I never heard of women house hacking in their 60s, but that's a new thing because it's like, I could do this and I'm able to live below my means. And plus I have a neighbor I could be friendly with. That's awesome.
It keeps you sharp. It keeps you social. There's so many different aspects kind of going on there rather than just like her getting income, which is also
correct,
awesome in every way.
Exactly.
So tell us, how does the Real Estate InvestHER help women get started? Like, what would you say would be the first couple steps if people are like really jazzed about this conversation and thinking, how do I even get started?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it's like someone coming up to me and say, I really want to run a marathon. And it's like me not being, and I've run one. So I can't say I'm a marathon expert, but I ran one. So if someone said, hey, I need some advice on a marathon, what can you say? And then I'll give them some advice. And then if they said, can you give me advice for backpacking in Europe? I mean, I can give them advice, but I've never done that before. And so I can kind of like shoot from the hip, but are they going to really want my opinion? And I think to give the analogy of real estate investing, that happens all the time, right? Or any business for that matter. It's like we go to people who are our friends or our family. We say, I want to buy a property. What do you think? Meanwhile, they own no property. They don't have any investments. They know nothing about it except what they hear on TV or watching HGTV. And they tell you it's a bad idea. This is a bad economy. We're in a recession. It's a horrible idea. Well, you have to watch who you're taking advice from. So I'm a firm believer of that because you want to feel support. I'm not saying be told lies. You have to be very careful in a market like we're in, but there's opportunity, just like there was in 2005 when we started. So I think number one, that's, I think, one of the biggest things our community offers is a safe community. So you can get your questions answered in a way that is supportive, not like blindly giving you advice of like, yeah, just throw your money in any property. No, you have to be smart. You have to know the market. There's a whole, pieces of the puzzle. But I think that's the biggest thing that we offer. Online community meetups. We have meetups across the country. We have our big conference that is once a year. So it's a way to be around like-minded women. It's not just money for money's sake, but these women want to build generational wealth. They don't want to just go buy a Ferrari. I don't know many women like that. They want to like pass things along to their kids. They want to have flexibility in their schedule. And if they want to go visit a friend across the country, they can because of the lifestyle and the way they've set their life up. That's what most women want, at least the women in our community. Or they want to start a retirement account on the side. I have a woman in our Strive community who she has a very good job fundraising, had it for a very long time. She's a few years away from retirement. She's built up her portfolio and she wants to do that full time after she leaves so she can continue to grow. And she's learning those skills. So I think to answer your question, Barbara, what's the first few things you can do? Number one, be around like-minded women and be around women who are actually doing what you want to do. That's really important. So you're actually hearing from the voices of people actually in the trenches investing in real estate today versus, someone who did it 20 years ago or hasn't bought a property or whatever. So that's number one. Number two, I'd say try to learn as much as you can. Obviously consume podcasts, go to meetups, start networking with people. I'm also a big believer that you have to take like kind of an inventory of where you are and where you want to go. Because, like anything, it could get very noisy. I mean, you could go Google real estate investing. I mean, so many things are going to come up, right? Mm-hmm. Should I be a passive investor? Should I be active investor? Should I go buy a dilapidated rehab? Should I just buy a property that's already done from someone and I don't have to deal with all that? It's all over the place. It's noisy and it's very hard to go, where do I start first? So I always like to say after the like-minded community, after getting the support or being around like-minded people, next thing you want to do is where do I want to be in 5 years? Financially, my lifestyle. And then you say, okay, where am I today? And then you start to say, okay, what can get me there? Okay, I want to build some passive income on the side. Okay, what does that look like? What are my resources, my time, my money? Don't let lack of money ever stop you. You don't need, $500,000 or a couple $100,000 to invest. You do need money. Someone needs money to invest in real estate.
Yeah, money helps.
Money helps. There's no question. But I also would say we grew our portfolio with doing it creatively. We're doing it with other people's money and partnering with people. And so I'm not saying that you just go and buy property and partner with random people. I'm not saying that at all. But there's always ways around whatever obstacles in your way. It's just a matter of where do I want to go? What's my commitment level? And then you start to say market and niche strategy to get me to where I want to go. Because then you have to get into, okay, what market may I want to invest? Biggest tip is don't get enamored with a real estate property. Get enamored with a market. You can't change a market.
I love that.
You can only participate in a market. So to me, it's really helpful to study a few markets and know those markets. So then when something comes up, if it's high and low. It's like playing a guessing game if you don't know that. We're studying a new market in Florida right now. We really want to buy a vacation rental that's like a retreat for InvestHER and just we could start to do. And it's a new market to us. I don't know it. I have no idea what's high and low. So I need to look at comps. I know what I need to do, but you just start to study the market. Are we going to buy something there like tomorrow? I don't know. Probably not, but we're going to know the market. So when something comes up and it is a good deal, we can pounce on it. So that's my next advice. Know where you want to go, know where you are, start to understand real estate niches, start to understand markets, but start to really understand the market's always more important than the real estate.
I really like all these tips that you're giving. And it's very much, you don't have to know everything before jumping in. You start and you realize, there's a whole world out there. So it's just inching your way in and asking those questions, being around a community that, has experience in owning storage units or in rental units, in these different things. So you can get their perspectives and see, would this be the best fit for me, my lifestyle, my resources, things of that nature.
Correct.
Yeah. And I will say that when Maggie and I went to your conference last year, we were just so impressed by the women that were there. And at one point, I know you said if you're a millionaire based on your, investments in real estate, stand up. And more than half of the room stood up. And Maggie and I were like, what? I mean, it was so cool. And then as we met these women and talked to them and how they got started, it was so impressive. So yeah, your conference was a major hit and a huge impact on us. We just thought it was super cool and super informative. And we loved all the women that we met there.
Thank you. And it is like little steps. It's all micro steps, and I think that's the biggest thing is just not getting overwhelmed. Because while statistically, women outperform men as investors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's shown, right? That's shown time and time again. It's also shown that women aren't doing it as much. So that's the change, right? That needs to be made. But once women invest, they usually make the right decisions. They usually buy the right properties. You're just feeling that confidence and the biggest way that we need to get out of our own ways, in my opinion, is that we think we need to know everything. We think we need to do it all. We think we know everything because that's, part of society, part of how we were brought up, part of like, you want something done, do it yourself. And I think we have to unlearn that and get that we don't need to have all the answers. I've never bought a short-term rental and I'm learning how to even analyze a short-term rental, to be honest. We've only done a lot of multifamily over the years. But I know now I'm going to go to experts. I know people in my community I'm going to run this by. I'm not going to do it by myself. I might have to pull the trigger, right? But I'm not going to be the only one analyzing it or looking at these things by myself. 10 years ago, I probably would have and felt like I needed to learn everything and I needed to be the one. And we have to get out of our own way and know that we have so much to offer other people and we can do the same for them. And that's the give and the get, right? Giving and getting. And that's what we stand upon in our community is, if you're new, you have so much to offer still. And if you're someone who's experienced, you're still new, you're still learning. So it's a whole journey. It's not like these women who are done and good to go. It's like we're always learning and growing. Just depends on what area it is.
Yeah, that's for sure. And even at a lot of the breakouts that we went to, there was something new to learn. And everyone there was like a sponge, trying to soak it all up. So it was fabulous.
But it is so important to know what questions you want to ask, have the right people to go to, and have the right professionals to help you in that process that you can trust. And so it's really making that team of not that you have to do it by yourself, but okay, who do I bring on my team?
Correct.
Who do I want to ask these questions to? Who do I trust? And what professionals do I want along the way? Which I feel like this is where we really go hand in hand is you have such a great community for people to collaborate with. And then we have some professionals as well to help, across the country to really make these dreams come into action and to, really get started.
Love that.
Because we don't want to analysis paralysis all day either. We want to jump in at some point and get started because that's how the wealth is going to be built.
Yeah. And I always say like, you're going to learn more on your first property and it's not about the money. Now you don't want to lose your shirt. I mean, we've lost money on properties and it's not fun. It's not fun bringing a check to closing. It just isn't. You learn a lot when that happens. How do I look in the mirror and say, what could I have done differently? What's the lesson I need to learn here? God, if you're not asking that question every day in general, you're going to keep repeating the same issues. So to your point, even when you have that team and you get that first deal, it's about getting it done. To me, it's less about the money. It's less about the return on investment because it's going to be a return on your education and what you're learning. That's what you're learning. And hopefully if you can make money and learn, awesome. That doesn't, depends on how you approach it. I started in my 20s, so we made a ton of mistakes on properties and people. And we learned a lot and we still make mistakes. You want those mistakes to decrease the impact and you want to be a little smarter and, and a little more strategic. And if you keep doing that, it's only going to snowball.
Yeah, it's like they say, there's really no mistake. It's all learning opportunities, one after the other. So, but you kept going, right? You kept going and saying, okay, and I learned from this and let's move on to the next one, right?
Yeah, we definitely, I say one thing, when you're starting out and you're trying to get, okay, what do I want to get involved with? The power of focus is very helpful. So if short-term rentals really intrigues you, learn as much as you can about that niche, or at least, read that book, and then start asking questions about, how do you do this? Or how do you start to learn, listen to the podcast that's focused on that niche. One thing that we didn't do very well was we got involved too many niches at the same time. And I think that limits people because they get a little like, you're not able to master something. If you're able to master it, you can do rinse and repeat. That's how people scale anything. It's all about rinsing and repeating. And it wasn't until we went all in on multifamily and said, this is going to be something we focus on. And now as we've grown that business, right? And we say, okay, what other things could we get involved in? Now it makes sense to kind of navigate other things, but we did that too soon. And I'd say for the younger listeners listening, I'd say be mindful of that, because I think that happens to a lot of people who are young and starting out. If you're not in that stage, you may be more mindful of that, but I know we weren't. So just focus. Focus is everything.
It's a great piece of advice because it's easy to get a little overzealous, as I
Correct.
like to say.
Yeah.
But I think you've given a ton of great information to our listeners today to just get them started, get the wheels turning, things like that. Do you have any, parting thoughts today for our listeners?
No, I would just say, if there's something pulling you to learn more about, learn about it, but put it on your calendar. Because what's not a habit for you right now, you may need to create that space. And there's always space in our lives, but the space doesn't happen from the universe. We have to go to our schedule and say, I'm going to go listen to a podcast today on real estate or this niche. I think we schedule what we value. And if you don't put it on your schedule, then you keep talking about it. It's just, it's inconsistent. So I'd say if you're inspired by something and there's an action you're feeling moved to take, put it on your schedule. Because if you don't put it on your schedule, it's going to be a really nice idea that, next month you're going to keep talking about. I'm writing a book with my husband, which is a feat. We've been talking about writing a book together for the last 3 years. And we have a schedule and we have a deadline. And you know what? We're writing the book now because of those reasons. It is on my schedule to write that book. Because if it wasn't, I wouldn't write the book. It's just as simple as that. We schedule what we value. So put it on your schedule. If you're feeling inspired by one thing you had an idea about, just something small you can do, put it on your schedule this week. That's my advice.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Liz, for your time today and all your wisdom and advice. It's been invaluable. And we look forward to our partnership together and aligning together and helping women, be what we say is financially fearless. So thanks. And until next week, be financially fearless.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.
Gunshin Financial LLC is a proud member of Purse Strings, an independent, fee-based registered investment advisory firm. Gunshin Financial serves individuals and businesses as a fiduciary, with an emphasis on relationships, not transactions. Kelly Gunshin, certified financial planner, specializes in retirement, financial and investment planning for women, as well as ESG investments. Listening carefully and respecting my clients' interests are central to my approach, says Kelly. You can find Kelly at pursestrings.co. That's pursestrings.co.